You know, every big company you can think of, whether it's building skyscrapers or running a hospital, has a central nervous system. It's the digital heart that manages literally everything: finance, payroll, inventory, all of it. This system is called an ERP, or Enterprise Resource Planning System, and for decades, it's been the bedrock of business. But here's the thing: that bedrock? It's starting to show some serious cracks.
So, what if that bedrock, the very foundation of how we build a company's brain, was just fundamentally flawed? What if you could build, customize, and scale these massive, complex systems with a speed that was once totally unimaginable? Well, today, we're going to dive into a revolution in enterprise software that promises to do exactly that.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with what an ERP actually is. Then we'll expose the massive bottleneck in the old systems. After that, we'll get into the metadata revolution that's changing the game, see it work in the real world, and finally wrap up with what this all means for the future of software.
Okay, first things first, let's talk about this idea of a company's nervous system. What exactly is this digital core that we keep mentioning?
Think of an ERP as the single source of truth for an entire company. It's basically this huge suite of applications that pulls everything together: finance, HR, manufacturing, the supply chain, you name it, into one single cohesive system. So instead of having like a dozen different programs that refuse to talk to each other, the ERP makes sure all that data flows smoothly across the entire business. Everyone is working from the same playbook.
Now, that all sounds fantastic in theory, right? A single system for everything. But in the real world, the old way of doing ERP has this massive fundamental problem, and that brings us to the legacy bottleneck.
And this idea isn't new, not by a long shot. It really got its start back in the 70s, mostly for managing manufacturing stuff. But then in the 90s, things just exploded. You might remember the whole Y2K scare, right? That panic actually forced tons of companies to upgrade their old systems, which led to the rise of these huge monolithic ERPs from giants like SAP and Oracle. They became completely baked into the corporate world.
And this quote just nails the core problem. These old-school ERPs are basically concrete buildings. Yeah, they're super strong, super stable, but they are incredibly rigid. So what happens when your business needs to change? Maybe you want to add a new approval step or tweak a workflow. Well, it's literally like trying to move a load-bearing wall. You can't just nudge it over. You have to bring in the wrecking ball and start a massive, expensive, and super disruptive renovation.
This all leads to something people in the industry call the customization tax. In the old world, if you wanted to change anything, you had to hire a small army of super expensive developers to go in and actually rewrite the software's core code. We're talking months, sometimes years of work. And the worst part? The vendor releases a software update and poof, all your expensive, hard-won customizations are just gone. You have to start the whole painful process all over again. It's a brutal cycle of high costs, insane delays, and huge risk.
Okay, so that's the problem. But what if you could change the blueprint of that concrete building without having to tear down the walls? Well, that's the big idea behind this radical new approach to building software.
This is a really fundamental shift in thinking. See, with the old, hard-coded way, all the business rules are written right into the software code itself. To change a rule, you have to change the code. But with a metadata-driven approach, all those rules are stored separately, as data. It's kind of like the software has a separate instruction manual it reads from. So if you need to change a business process, you don't rewrite the engine. You just update the instruction manual, the metadata. It's that simple.
So how does this actually work? Well, it's all built on three main pillars. First, you've got the intelligence layer. It basically captures all your business logic and turns it into a simple, machine-readable blueprint. Step 2 is governance. This is like a security wrapper that goes around the blueprint, controlling exactly who gets to see and do what. And then, the third step, this is where the magic happens, the universal engine. It takes that secure blueprint, reads it, and builds the entire application instantly, on the fly. No coding, no compiling, it just happens.
So let's go back to our analogy. If the old way was that rigid concrete building, the new way is like a modular space station. You can swap out modules, add new ones, change things around, all without messing up the core structure. It's flexible. And here's the really cool part. Because the entire system is just described in this simple, readable data, AI can understand it. AI can read that blueprint and interact with the system instantly. That opens up a world of automation and intelligence that's just impossible with those old, clunky, hard-coded systems.
Okay, this all sounds amazing in theory, but does it actually work out there in the real world? Well, let's take a look at a pretty fascinating case study that puts this whole new architecture to the test.
This whole revolution is being pushed forward by companies like NEEDLU. They've built an entire no-code ERP platform based on this metadata-driven model. And their whole goal is to get rid of that awful choice you used to have to make between having a system that perfectly fits your business and having it delivered quickly.
And this is where the story gets really interesting. They partnered with a company called George Stewart Engineering. Now, this is a division of a company that was founded way back in 1835. I mean, you can't get much more legacy than that. And yet, this almost 200-year-old company embraced this incredibly futuristic technology to completely digitize their super complex construction business. This just proves that this isn't some fleeting trend for startups. It's a real, powerful solution for even the most established companies out there.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The results are pretty clear. This quote from another major player in construction really highlights the impact this is having. At the end of the day, it's not just about fancy tech. It's about empowering your teams, giving them the data and the tools they need to do their jobs faster and better, without all the frustration of traditional software holding them back.
So what's the big picture here? What does this all mean for the future of software? Well, the impact of this shift is, honestly, it's staggering. Let's just look at the raw numbers.
First up, speed. We're talking up to 20 times faster delivery. Let that sink in for a second. A project that used to take a whole year, or maybe even more, now it can be done in weeks. That is a total game changer.
And of course, when you move that fast, what happens to the cost? It plummets. We're looking at a 90% reduction in the total project time and cost. By getting rid of the need for huge coding teams and endless development cycles, you just slash the financial burden on a company.
And get this, there's even a huge sustainability benefit, which you might not expect. Because the system is just processing these lightweight metadata files, instead of compiling gigantic, heavy code bases, the energy needed for AI-assisted development drops by more than 60%. So it's not just faster and cheaper, it's greener too.
I mean, when you put it side by side like this, the difference is just night and day, isn't it? You have the old world, manual coding, rigid, takes months or even years. And then you have the new way, 100% customizable, with no code, 20 times faster, and it can scale up or down dynamically with your business. It's not even a fair fight.
And look, this isn't just one company's bright idea. The entire industry is shifting this way. The big research firm Gartner even has a name for it, the post-modern ERP. The idea is to move away from those giant, one-size-fits-all systems and towards a more flexible mix of apps that you can plug and play as you need them. And this metadata-driven architecture we've been talking about, that's the engine making this whole postmodern vision a reality.
So, that brings us to the final big question. For decades, business innovation has been chained to the slow, heavy, and painful process of writing code. But what happens when that's no longer true? What happens when a company's business logic, its secret sauce, can be treated just like data? When the software that runs the entire company becomes as fluid and as fast as an idea itself? What's the limit to innovation then?